All right, we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and late good evening for our speaker Bishak today. Thanks for joining in. This is the third webinar in the webinar series that we are holding under the Geophysical Flows Lab, which is Prospective Center of Excellence at IIT Madras. So, brief intro on the speaker we have today. Uh, Bishak received his undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from Jadavpur University in 2006 before doing his master's at JNCASR Bangalore in 2007. He then did again a master's and a PhD from the University of California at San Diego, working with Professor Sutanu Sarkar. And he is currently an Australian Research Council Future Fellow and Senior Lecturer in the Mechanical Engineering Department of the University of Melbourne, and also an assistant professor in the Center of Atmospheric and Oceanic Sciences at the Indian Institute of Science. So it's my pleasure to welcome him again to this webinar, and he will be talking about the dominant role of convection and turbulence in the global ocean circulation today. Bishak, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Mani. And today I'm going to talk about the role the player of by convection and turbulence ocean circulation. And definitely, none of the work actually cannot be done with a team. So the today's work, so the couple of results I done with my colleagues Ross Griffiths, Andy Hogg, and Graham Hugh, and with all our people, Catherine, Bahman, Taimur, and Ankit. So some of the results taken PhD or some of the ongoing research.
So, Bishak, your screen sharing has stopped. Could you please try again?
Okay, let me see. What is the problem?
If the problem recurs, you could even consider switching off your video, Bishak.
Switching off. Okay. Now,
Yeah, now I can see the slide. I think if we again have a problem or if the audio is
yes,
not coming
definitely.
through, you can switch off your video. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, uh, so here is the global ocean circulation. So I don't think I have to tell about what is the important, but to summarize here, it transfers heat and mass, it regulates the CO2, it controls the marine biology, and to extend water cycle. So if you adds up everything, it actually control the climate and weather system and its system. Now, for any system, we need to understand its source and sink, because like ocean circulation, somehow it is in a kind of a quasi-balanced state. So there is a source and then the dissipation, both combined give you this balanced state. And if I identify the source is here called buoyancy forcing and mechanical forcing. So in the buoyancy forcing, it is mainly due to heat and salt fluxes coming between air sea interfaces, or sometimes is the land interfaces. In the land, I talk about geothermal heating, and also happen through the ice and ocean interfaces. And and another part is the biggest part is the mechanical forcing, where we have wind work and the tide. And this is a nice schematic. I've shown it here, which show you the all processes that possible in the ocean. And some of the processes may not be listed, but it is enough to show you it is a very complex system. And the forcing are happen from the all the boundaries from the ocean, and some are the inside the ocean that by tide. Now go back to look at the our sink for this system. When you look at the sink, we have bottom drag, bottom turbulence, internal wave interaction, small scale convection, near surface turbulence, loss of balance, formation of unstable density front, interaction with the ocean boundaries. So these all the sinks leads to a forward cascading. So taking the energy out from the sources. Now, if I talk about geostrophic turbulence, that was not the present focus of the talk, it leads to a inverse cascade. So for in this talk, I'll mainly talk about the small scale processes which is leading to in forward cascading, and we also try to look at what are the energy sources to driving this circulation. Now, main focus will be around wind and the buoyancy fluxes. So to understand the wind, we need to understand what are the wind field around our planet and their pattern. Okay, so here is the schematic I'm showing here. So you can see here they have the wind called westerlies and easterlies, okay, which is moving towards the towards from this picture towards your left. These are the easterlies, and towards the right is the westerlies. And particularly, this wind will give the stress on the ocean surfaces. Okay, that will give you a forcing on the ocean surface. And the largest wind forcing happen particularly in the Southern Ocean, where it uninterruptedly moves around the planet because there is no continental barrier there. Okay, so this is the largest westerlies around the Southern Ocean. Now, if I look at the surface forcing by the buoyancy, we need to understand both the temperature distribution over the ocean surface and the salinity distribution of the ocean surfaces. So looking at the temperature that is written here is SST, you can see here around the tropics and subtropics, ocean is relatively warm. And if you go to the higher latitude, ocean surface is colder. Okay, so the red is showing the colder ocean temperature. And the temperature contrast is around 30 degree from equator to pole. Now looking at the SST, SSS, that was the salinity distribution over the top of the ocean, okay, that is very interesting. It is not a clear trend from equator to pole. There is around the subtropical regime, the salinity is a little bit higher. And as you go to the polar, the salinity is lower. Okay, so one of the processes is responsible for the higher salinity at the subtropics is the evaporation. When the evaporation happens, it rejects the brine or reject the salt that densify the ocean surfaces. And as you go to the pole, those locations, there was a melting is going on. So freshwater fluxes. Okay, so that was controlling the salinity. For temperature is all due to the sunlight. Okay, and combination of your long wave and short waves. Now, if I combine this both salinity and temperature, I can get a density field. And looks like my density field is very similar to my temperature field. So ocean top density is mainly controlled by temperature field. Okay, so you can see here density is relatively low around the tropics and around the equator, and as you go to the higher latitude, density is larger. And just a couple of things I like to highlight. The salinity is not the only way it gets from the top surface. Okay, there was a lot of ocean basin. So say example of Bay of Bengal, there's a lot of river discharge occurs. Okay, similarly happened in the Amazon, that is also control the local circulation. Now, back again, just to schematically showing the circulation, and the basin I have chosen here is Atlantic overturning circulation. Okay, for this present topic. Okay, so in the Atlantic, this is a cross section of Atlantic overturning circulation in a zonally average view. When you say zonally average view, that means if one side is one continent, for Atlantic, that was your what is called Africa, and then other side you have what is called, one side is a what is called American continent, and another side is your European continent. So if I zonally average that entire ocean basin, so my picture of overturning circulation shown in here. Okay, and in the top figure, it is showing where you get those buoyancy fluxes. Okay, and in the buoyancy space, okay, there will be loss of buoyancy. And by the way, when I talked about buoyancy, buoyancy is again combined with the temperature and salinity. So buoyancy is nothing but opposite of densification. So higher density means is lower buoyancy, vice versa. So as you see in my first figure, so you have the top of the ocean surface near the equator, there was a there's a low density. So that means in that area, it has a buoyancy gain. Okay. As you go to the polar end, a money just to show. Can you see my mouse by the way?
Can you move it now?
Now
Yes.
you can see, right? Okay, so
Yes.
good. So this is the area I'm talking about around the pole. We have a buoyancy loss, okay, and that buoyancy loss by the many processes. One of the processes is the temperature is low. Another process also happened during the winter time. The formation happen that is also reject salt. So both the salt rejection as well as cooler temperature is a buoyancy loss happen. Okay, but for the salt they have an annual cycle. Okay, because the summer period you have a fresh water. Okay, but most of the time there's a buoyancy loss happen near the pole. So these are our buoyancy forcing. And in the same picture, I'm showing couple of location. You have a high wind blowing. So this was the location is called Southern Ocean, where the wind is blowing. This was is out of the page. Okay, and then also there are a couple of locations. You have a easterlies also. Okay, near subtropics. But now I like to show you the view of overturning circulation. Okay, overturning circulation, which is happen in the vertical domain, okay, or vertical space. Okay. So in Atlantic overturning circulation, it has a two cell. Okay, one is called upper cell, another is called lower cell. So here is showing the upper cell. So that upper cell has a sinking limb that was mainly around the North Pole, and for the southern and for the lower cell there is also a sinking branch that was located around the southern ocean or located around the southern pole. Okay, and this circulation is goes particularly for the lower limb, they goes all the way to the bottom of the ocean, and then similarly for the upper cell it is blow as a deep water, and both of the circulation is upwells around the southern ocean. So not only that location has upwell, there's also upwells happen around the side boundary or interior of the ocean, but the dominant upwelling happen around the southern ocean. Okay, so and then in this circulation there's a lot of area the mixing is occurs, that means is called turbulence, the, like by bottom topography, and also the mixing is happen around the top of the ocean by wind and also by the buoyancy forcing or internal wave breaking. Okay, now that I was shown you only the zonally average view, but if you look at this circulation in a more three-dimensional fashion, it is very complex. So many attempt has been made in oceanographic community to draw this circulation. So one of the greatest attempt was then made by Lynn Talley. So this picture was taken from her book, and here is showing couple of overturning circulation in three big basin. Okay, when you say three big basin, one is called Atlantic basin, another is Indian basin, another is a Pacific basin. Okay, and all the circulation is very different because because the ocean basin is also different. For Indian Ocean basin, the northern part is absolutely absent. For Pacific Ocean, you don't have a northern sinking area. For Atlantic, you have the northern sinking area. Okay, but for all the basin, there's a sinking area at the southern is fixed, that is around the Antarctica. And just one thing I like to highlight, you can see here the purple and the red color, which are the warm surface water. Okay, and the rest of the other color is called deep or bottom water. Now there's a also recent attempt looking at the much more beautiful view of the circulation. I don't want to go into deeper, but I'm just showing you they are connected by the Southern Ocean circulation. Okay, Southern Ocean I mentioned about it. The ocean is goes round around the Antarctica. So this is the ocean is very playing a very important role of mixing and matching of all of the big ocean basin. Okay, at the same time controlling one of the biggest ice sheet of our planet to control the sea level rise. Because if you no Southern Ocean, then from the all ocean basin, the warm water is just come and melt our entire ice. So this Southern Ocean is kind of making a barrier, okay, to protect the heat from coming from all the big ocean basin to come to the Antarctica. Now, those I'm talking about overturning, okay, but it is over circulation, not only the vertical view, there is also horizontal currents associated with this ocean circulation, okay. So if you look at the ocean, each and every ocean basin, if everything is extend from North Pole to South Pole, it always has a stronger subtropical gyres, okay, which is I am highlighting here. Each ocean basin, okay, except Indian Ocean, which is doesn't have the northern part because we have the continent, but rest of the all the ocean basin, you have this subtropical gyre. So gyre means kind of a big eddy, but that eddy is size the same as the width of the ocean basin. Okay? And this gyres is also identified by a western intensification. When you say western intensification, if you pull out any of the gyre, I'm just showing it here. For example, I'm talking about North Atlantic gyre. It has a Gulf Stream and western boundary current. So you can see it's an intensified boundary current. If I pull out the gyre in North Pacific, it has also western boundary current along with Kuroshia current. If you look at some of the currents related to the south, and this was the one is the it's called Indian Ocean gyre. It is also associated with this Agulhas current, okay, the strong western intensification. Now, of course, for the Southern Ocean, there is also a strong surface current which is moving round and round Antarctica. Okay, it's very dynamic and rich in eddies. Now, to the present view of overturning circulation, and particularly the deep convection, which is I mentioned about where you expect in our ocean basin in a rapidly changing climate. These are the couple of recent and decade-old results, but they are finding more evidence of slowing down this overturning circulation. Doesn't matter what type of proxy they use. Okay, in here, these are the proxies, different proxies they use, and all based on the observation and some based on the reanalysis product. You can see here the overturning circulation is slowing down, and this study mainly based for the focusing about Atlantic overturning circulation. Okay, and mainly the slowing down happened from our industrialization. So something to do with our warming planet. And very interestingly, last decade is slowing down much rapidly. Okay? Another thing, this also look at some reanalysis study of this one, like a warming of the ocean. And they also found if I'm warming the global temperature around 2 degrees, the circulation is probably going to collapse. Okay? This was the recent IPCC report. Now, in another view of deep convections, okay, all the convections happen around the ocean near the pole. There was also parallel studies happening. They found the area of convection, okay, where is the convection happening over the ocean, that area is also decreasing since our after our industrialization or after industrialization period. Okay, so something to do with the warming ocean or warming our planet. Now, we don't know the connection, okay, how this is connecting with overturning circulation. And why we don't know? There is also a separate picture from our oceanography, understanding ocean circulation. Okay, so here is I'm listing a couple of papers which is actually saying a different view of ocean circulation. Okay, so the one of the paper I'm listing here is a very famous paper, and here was showing, you know, how much is the power goes to general circulation, okay, to maintain this circulation. Not only small scale circulation, also talking about overturning or horizontal circulation, any type of this big circulation, okay, basin scale circulation, what we call. And you can see here, there is a two big zeros around the cooling and heating and evaporation and precipitation. Okay. So that means the circulation is not getting energy by the buoyancy fluxes from the ocean. And one of the basis is that there's a famous 100 years old sandstorm theorem that is saying in a closed steady circulation can be maintained in the ocean only if the heating source is situated at a lower level than cooling source. Okay, as you have probably seen, the heating, cooling, or buoyancy loss or buoyancy gain in the ocean, if I neglect the geothermal heating, it is only happen at the same geopotential level. So according to sandstorm theorem, circulation cannot be established by this buoyancy forcing. Now, there was also parallel study. They are also saying if maybe the circulation is forced by the system, that circulation cannot produce turbulence. Okay, so I'll come back to this horizontal convection, but this horizontal convection is something circulation is driven by the buoyancy. Okay, heating and cooling from the top surface, and is clearly saying it cannot produce turbulence. Okay? So that means what if its buoyancy is not producing circulation, so then we have left mechanical forcing, and is correct. So present view of overturning circulation or any circulation is mechanical, and mixing of ocean is drive ocean circulation. Okay. Now there is then back to a significant knowledge gap. What is the role of buoyancy in the present situation to driving the circulation with other mechanical forcing, okay, say for wind or say for tide? Okay, because it is not clear and not quantified. And what is the role of convection is not well understood. And why is not understood? Because convection is not well represented in ocean and climate models. Okay, and why is so difficult not to represent those small scale for climate and ocean models? Here is the picture. Because this circulation happens with wide range of length and time scale, all the way to the thermohaline circulation, which happen to 10,000 kilometer domain, that means Arctic to Antarctic, happen through 100 years time scale. And if you go all the way, you see some wave activity that is happening in the internal waves that also comparatively small to large scale, okay, but definitely is lower than the mesoscale. Okay, so these are the where you get mesoscale activities, lower than the mesoscale, so this will be kind of a submesoscale activities. Okay? But convection and turbulence happen much more smaller, the scale of millimeter to centimeter and 1/10 to 1/100th of second. So you can see here convection on turbulence or turbulent convection, it is actually pillar of this small scale, is pillar of this ocean circulation. But it is not clear how this impact and what is the the feedback between the circulation and the small scale. So this was the one of the biggest question in oceanography. Okay, to understand the circulation, I think we have to understand all the processes. Okay, so it is absolutely impossible for any model to capture millimeter to 10,000 kilometer. It is not possible, not even another 50 years. So the challenges, yes, ocean observations and ocean models. This is the way we understand our ocean circulation. Ocean observation definitely is very difficult to observe each and every corner of the ocean with the accurate spatial and temporal resolution. Ocean models, the only one we can actually understand global ocean circulation, but they cannot resolve all the way to the convection or turbulence. They cannot resolve even less than 1 to 10 kilometer, depending on different those GCM we call as a global ocean models. Okay, this was the one of the pictures I got from my colleague Andy Hogg, and it was showing is a nice view of eddy kinetic energy of global ocean basin. Here, this circulation or these models are run with 1/10 of degree. Excuse me, just so, okay. So this is the view. You can see it here, but whatever you see, all the resolution is more than 10 kilometer. So we really don't see the small scale turbulence in this simulation. So what are the other alternative approach? So we do some complementary approach doing DNS, LES, lab and theory to resolve the physics. Okay? And the models should be in the right dynamical regime. We'll talk about this data regime. And once you have this model, we run this model. So we create the data. And another way, we also establish theoretical model. So from that, you can establish some scaling. Once you have scaling, then based on the scaling, we can precisely predict the system. Now back again the dynamical regime. So the dynamical regime is the same as the people done with the experiment, okay, or in the engineering view. Okay, when you're sending a space shuttle, we'll make the space shuttle in a small domain or a very small prototype, but make sure that prototype will get all the dynamical forcing that was they get it in your space. So this dynamical regime is controlled by bunch of non-dimensional number, okay? And this non-dimensional number depending what forcings are important. And still it's difficult because if I calculated one of those non-dimensional number for ocean, particularly Rayleigh number, Reynolds number, I'll come back to the specific definition, but Rayleigh number is showing the buoyancy forcing, Reynolds number kind of showing mechanical forcing, Rossby number talking about rotation, and aspect ratio. How small is the width of the ocean compared to the, and how small the depth of the ocean compared to the width of the ocean. Okay, and these numbers are quite sparse and large, and still is a big challenge to achieve this number even with this approach. Now back again, I'll go through one of those forcing first, okay, and come back to our main problem. Everybody knows this classic view of Rayleigh-Bénard convection, which happen when you were cooling at the top surface and heating at the bottom surface, okay, and that this is always run super turbulence field and large scale convections, okay, and this situation is very similar for our atmosphere, where upper atmosphere is cooler and lower atmosphere is warmer. So atmospheric circulation is very well known fact is driven by buoyancy forcing or convectionally controlled system. And definitely for this system, the couple of parameters, non-dimensional parameters are important. One is the Rayleigh number that can be defined by temperature or defined by the fluxes, and the Prandtl number that is depends on the property of the fluid. Okay, and net heat flux, when the balance, because you are cooling the top surface and heating the top surface, when the two heat fluxes balance, you get a thermally equilibrated state. So the temperature of any corner of this domain will reach a quasi-steady value. Now, ocean is not like that. Ocean is like this, where heating and cooling applied at the top of the ocean. Okay, so now back again, we can also define the Rayleigh number, equivalent Rayleigh number, but Rayleigh number definition is now based on the length where the heating and cooling is applied. So this Rayleigh number little bit different for our Rayleigh-Bénard convection. But one thing I like to highlight here, the net heat input. You see in a Rayleigh-Bénard convection, there is always a net input if I integrate or average in horizontal direction. But for this system, there is a no net buoyancy flux, or there is a no net heat flux to the system. So then is the big paradox. If there is a no net heat flux or no net buoyancy flux from the top surface, how this buoyancy flux is driving ocean circulation? So that was the one of the big paradox in oceanography. Okay, because according to the sandstorm, it never can have a full depth circulation. Okay, and here I would like to highlight here. So if you have this circulation, we call as a horizontal convection. Okay, so this is, I didn't give the name. So this is like a convection they have seen. You know, convection is always like a vertical, but because it's heating and cooling, if it's driving a current, the name is called horizontal convection. Okay? Even there is a vertical convection in this problem, but the nomenclature is the horizontal convection. So I'll stick to that nomenclature. Now, the biggest paradox, does it going to have a full depth circulation? Can it produce sufficient turbulence? Can it produce sufficient mixing, which is actually is required for driving our ocean circulation? Now, before going, one of the important factor I want to say it is called available potential energy concept. Okay, and before that, I just like to highlight here, to understand the ocean circulation, you need to understand not by heat fluxes alone or not by the potential energy. You need to understand the available potential energy. Okay, it is another kind of potential energy which is available for driving the motion. Okay, I'll quickly go through that process. So here, this is a nice movie was conducted at ANU, and what is the movie is, just like to highlight here, the top figure. Okay, this is you have a slab. Okay, the black is slab and the rest of is the fluid. Okay, for the first, let's just go. Okay, so the first one, the top one, has that same density of entire water. Okay, the shallower part of the water and the whole deeper part of the water has the same density. Okay, and the top part of the water is actually what is called restricted and put dye inside it, and that dye color is blue. In the bottom figure is a very different scenario where your left hand side is low density water and the right hand side is the high density water. So the density difference is delta. So the rho minus delta rho is the density of this yellow fluid, and rho plus delta rho is the high density fluid, which is kept over this slab, and the rest of the interior part is just the rho. So if you calculate the density of these two systems is absolutely identical. Okay, so if absolutely identical, we might expect why it should drive a circulation. But now let's open the barrier. You can see that the top one, the fluid is not moving at all, but the bottom one, you can see the high density fluid is coming down. Okay, and if you maintain that fluid, it might running the whole circulation. Is the speculation, but at least for this moment you can see the fluid is coming down. Okay, so this is the concept of available potential energy. So the system is the down has more available potential energy, and system at the top, it doesn't have at all any available potential energy. And exactly is showing by in this cartoon. So system 1 has same density, but system 2 has this type of peculiar structure. Okay, but if you integrate or if you calculate the potential energy for both system identical, but if I calculate available potential energy, which is given by this definition, where this z is z star, not the geopotential height. It is the adiabatically resorting height. Okay, I'm not going to go much of this one, but just to show you that this system has more available potential energy that can drive, or that can available to convert to have a kinetic energy. And if you look at, this is the most simplistic view of ocean system. At the equator, you have low density water, and at the pole, you have a high density water. And you can think about, this is the way the buoyancy gain and buoyancy loss is happen, and it might be, or it is the main cause of driving circulation by buoyancy. Now, if I give you an analogy of mechanical system, okay, think about, this is the two. One is a cylinder which CG is located, another is the cone, both at the same time. You can immediately understand the cone has a tendency to fall in expense of available potential energy. Okay, of course, I don't want to go much deeper, but it is like a very simplistic analogy in the mechanical system. Now, back again, here is some numerical simulation of the present problem taken from my previous study. And here we have a cooling is applied at the top and heating applied at the bottom, and we divide it into half and half. Okay, and what is I'm showing here temperature field. Okay, so what is happened, you see, because of the cooling and heating, it creating a pressure gradient, and that pressure gradient is driving a current. But over the cooling end, it is also flow getting unstable. It's like to go down, but they cannot go down over the entire cooling area, because there is always a low density fluid which is migrated over from the top, from the heating area under this cooling area. So the convective flume is cannot penetrate, but they manage to penetrate when they go to the end wall, and you get kind of end wall convection. Okay, so this was kind of a very, very simplistic, the most simplistic view of buoyancy driven circulation. Of course, you can immediately cannot connect with the ocean, okay, because they have a topography, they have not like cooling happen over the half and half. Okay, but this was the view was proposed first time by Samuel and Rossby. Of course, the non-dimensional parameter again is important: Rayleigh number, Prandtl number, and aspect ratio. Now, we'd like to address, for does this circulation we call as a horizontal circulation is really turbulent? To answer this question, of course, we have to increase our non-dimensional number, which is control the buoyancy, which is the Rayleigh number, and let's see, can we get the small scale turbulence? And with the help of LES, we can really go very, very large number, but still is the ocean Rayleigh number is much larger, but this Rayleigh number is the highest Rayleigh number we can achieve for this present problem with the help of larger simulation. You can see here, the top is the experiment that was limited. Okay, we couldn't go beyond 10 to the power 12, but the LES can go back over 10 to the power 15. You can see there is a overturning circulation, and you get all range of scales. So the view of this horizontal convection is not turbulent, is not correct. So we can see it is not only driving the full depth circulation, which is opposed to the Sandstrom theorem, at the same time is opposed to other people view that it can produce, not only produce the large scale overturning, it can also produce small scale turbulence. Now, we like to get some estimation, okay, some scaling of the circulation. Okay, so most simplistic view, looking at the system is the momentum equation and written in a stream function way. So it will be two-dimensional way we are understanding it. If you look at the momentum equation, it is always has a three terms if you don't consider the rotation for a moment. One is the inertia term, one is the buoyancy term, another viscous term. Of course, if it's a very small forcing, you don't expect small scale turbulence. So So the balance will be established between the buoyancy and viscous. And in the heat transfer, there is a heat is diffused through the stable part of the forcing, that is the heating area, and then get advected by the large scale motion. So the balance between advection and diffusion still holds for this system. So there's a two unknown there. One is the stream function and the boundary layer thickness. And if you solve for these two equations, you get called traditional Rayleigh, what is called Rossby scaling, where boundary layer thickness is getting smaller and smaller with the Rayleigh number and power of -1/5. But the circulation increases with the Rayleigh number, same as the non-dimensional heat flux. So this is called as a heat flux is increases with the power of Rayleigh number. So it's quite efficient way of maintaining this large scale motion or large scale or global heat transfer or heat uptake. Now, with the help of this large Rayleighs, we can go beyond. We can say it will produce small scale. In that case, the viscous terms can be neglected. So there will be balance between inertia and buoyancy. Still, the advection diffusion balance exists, and we get a inertia scaling, inertia buoyancy scaling, where I like to highlight here the Rayleigh number and Prandtl number product will cancel the viscosity. Okay, and the power law doesn't change. But there's an alternative power law was proposed recently, but this power law is quite robust. And when you look at the wide range of Rayleigh number scale, okay, from 10 to the power 18 to 10 to the power 15, we clearly see these two power law holds, and in between there's a transition from laminar to turbulent, which is shown in back in here. Okay, so through this study, we can establish it drives the large scale circulation. At the same time, it can drive small scale. And here, showing a couple of snaps for different regime. So we call as a viscous regime. This is the transitional regime. This is the highly turbulent regime. And we expect this is the kind of regime expect in ocean. But of course, one thing we are missing here, rotation. What rotation will play in this circulation? Because we cannot remove rotation when you talk about geophysical fluid or oceanography. Okay? Now, the same system in the box where all the side wall is closed, okay, we impose rotation. As soon as we impose rotation, interestingly, the circulation is started from your heating end, but cannot go all the way to the cooling end by the same continental boundary. Here is showing by this contour. The blue color is the velocity, okay, or we call it meridional velocity. So something is happening. You get some western intensification. At the same time, you get some zonal flow. Of course, we can say, yes, we expect zonal flow because now because of the rotation, you should expect a geostrophic flow. And that geostrophic flow, we should cross from east to west in ocean. In particular here is going from your from this side to other side. Now, when you introduce the rotation, we have to introduce another new non-dimensional number that is called Ekman number or Rossby number. So now in our bucket, we are adding another complexity and we are adding another non-dimensional number. Now what will happen? If I go back to this picture, you can see here, this fluid, which is moving from the hot end, it always is stable, is like to stay at the top, and that stopping the convection to penetrate when it moving to the cooling end. But this flow is not present now over the surface over the cooling end, because this flow become a current, western intensification, eastern intensification. So over the entire cooling end, the convection is exposed. So what will happen? So here is the view looking at the isosurfaces of a vertical velocity field. So you can see here that we talk about Rossby number. So Rossby number is nothing but when you increase the rotation, Rossby number is getting smaller. So we are getting more closer to the ocean. So Rossby number is low means we are back to again non-rotating flow. So in the non-rotating version, you get an end wall convection. But when you go to lower Rossby number, you can see the convection is penetrate over the entire cooling end, which is also evidenced by lab experiment. So you get some kind of a open ocean convections. Okay, we do see this one in North Atlantic over the cooling near the pole. Okay, now this is showing you some view of three-dimensional view of overturning circulation. Okay, one by one. My Rayleigh number is goes from my Rossby number is largest here and smallest here. So here you only see meridional flow, okay, which is shown by this blue color, and you get a overturning circulation. Now, if you increase the rotation slowly, you not only get the overturning circulation, this is the zonally average view, you get some interesting surface intensification, forming some current, western boundary current, and then the current, zonal current, that is go from east to west, maintain the geostrophy, then eastern intensification. And this is maintained for any rotation you go. And then we also studied really large rotation, we call as a rapid rotation, may not be relevant for the ocean, but they're relevant for our study. Now, let's look at the balance now. When we go to the rotation, after some rotation speed, we have to have a geostrophic balance, correct? And geostrophic balance is the pressure gradient is balancing the buoyancy force. Okay, so pressure, force, and buoyancy is balanced. So here is, this is the balance is maintained. In that balance, we can cancel the inertia terms and viscous term. But in the heat equation, still the balance maintained between advection and diffusion. And that give you very interesting called geostrophic scaling now. Okay, so a couple of things I like to highlight here. In the geostrophic scaling, your boundary layer thickness is smaller, still smaller with the Rayleigh number, but now is much bigger power of Rayleigh with Rayleigh number. And additional thing is coming here called Ekman number. So more you rotate the planet, okay, more thicker the boundary layer will be. But look at the meridional mass transport, which is kind of a overturning circulation, measure of the overturning circulation, still is the power of Rayleigh number, even higher power than non-rotating case. Okay. Heat transfer, same. Okay. Now, with the help of our numerical simulation, we can look at the scaling, how good this scaling is. Okay. So this is the side of each, every right hand side of this figure, we have non-rotating case. Okay, Rossby number is larger. Okay, and more increase the Rossby number, you can start to getting this, the scaling, which is proposed by the geostrophic balance. Okay, here the scaling was shown by Rossby. This is similarly you can get from Ekman number scaling, which is also give you this 1/3 scaling, with the Rossby number is driven by 1/5. Okay, and here I'm using non-dimensional quantity for each circulation, which was taken from the non-rotating component. Okay, and you can see here when you increase the rotation, boundary layer or heat transfer decreases. What is called your transport is decreased, but it is not the way of understanding. Its understanding is how good is the scaling is. So if we have the scaling, we can predict from that scaling our global overturning circulation without having any mechanical forcing. Now, just the view where we are sitting in terms of numerical simulation or in terms of the ocean. So this is the view of Rayleigh number. So this axis is Rayleigh number and this axis is 1 by Ekman number. So we can have a called rotation. So here, if I increase the rotation and here I increase the buoyancy forcing. And you have seen before, when there is a no rotation, relatively small Rayleigh number, there is an inner buoyancy and viscous balance. If you go further in the Rayleigh number space, then turbulent motions are important. Inertia is important. Now, if I choose any Rayleigh number, increase my rotation, we have to go to a geostrophic regime, which is shown here by this yellow patch. Okay. Of course, I superimpose the ocean Rayleigh number and the Rayleigh number we can achieve by numerical simulation. Ocean Rayleigh number is 10 to the power 25 and Ekman number is around this number. You can see here, ocean is still is in the geostrophic regime, but in some part of the ocean, it can come to in the inertia regime. Okay, but definitely ocean is not in the conduction regime, where we call as a very, very rapid rotation. Okay, every motion will be standstill. Okay, that was is the the understanding of the regime of ocean. Now we add another complexity. Now rotation is not fixed in the ocean. Rotation is varying in the meridional direction. That means equator rotation is 0, and if you go to the pole, rotation is smaller. Okay. What type of feature we can see? This is the numerical simulation. It's quite expensive simulation. We ran it, and where you're showing is the kinetic energy in here, and this side is showing your temperature field, and this side see your vertical velocity field. What you see here, similarly, you get a western intensification. The current is low as a zonal current, eastern intensification, and this current is sink because this current is getting cooled by the atmosphere by buoyancy loss. And then over this one, you have a rich convection going on over the cooling area. So this is not a very bad for our North Atlantic overturning circulation. So if I give you some couple of analogy here, so this is our western boundary current. This is kind of Gulf Stream, and this is a Norwegian current. Okay, and this Gulf Stream is setting by a geostrophic balance by tilting of this isotherm when we have this what is called zonal current goes. And not only that, we actually get gyres. We get subtropical gyres, we get subpolar gyres, very similar looking, but of course lesser magnitude than the real ocean. So definitely, whatever we understanding about gyre circulation, the people talked about wind-driven gyre. It is not accurate description of the gyre. Okay, there is a buoyancy can control this gyre some extent, and in our future study, we are looking at what is the component of the buoyancy forcing driving this gyre when you can have this solid scaling. Now, I just quickly go through here. Okay, I'm not explain many part. Here we also run wind in the North Atlantic scenario, looking at the effect of wind and buoyancy. And here we are not only changing wind, we are also changing the buoyancy. And again, when you introduce wind, definitely we have to come up with another non-dimensional number, and that was we call as the S factor. Okay, and here you can see here I'm changing the S factor, and definitely it has an impact of overturning circulation. It increases the overturning circulation. But what is the component for the wind driven for our present overturning circulation? So in the same picture, I put the ocean observation. So looks like this was very close to what we observed only by the buoyancy driven circulation. Okay, and these are the scaling we can use to predict further. Now I just take you in a different planet now. Okay, so not different planet, different area of the ocean. Go to the Southern Ocean, where you have a heating and cooling, but you call as a zonal re-entrainment. So there is no continental boundary. What will happen? You get the similar view of Gulf Stream, but now there is no western boundary current, and there is a very weak overturning. This is the non-rotation view of the system. This is the rotation view of the system. Overturning is very weak, but you get a zonal current. Okay, so things like this non-rotating, rotating horizontal convection is now driving zonal current, which is similar to our Southern Ocean. We also did some study on that particular area, looking at the both effect and the wind. And we are also varying the wind so that we can establish those scaling. And interestingly, without wind forcing, we can produce this zonal circulation or Southern Ocean circulation, and we can also get this lower branch of AMOC, okay, and that is highly sensitive to the buoyancy forcing and weak sensitive to the wind forcing. Now, this is the like a model for our global ocean circulation. We have a reentrainment channel. When there is a no side boundary, heating and cooling is applied, you get a zonal current. You don't get any western intensification or any boundary current. When you have a closed domain, you get this western intensification and eastern intensification, as well as get zonal current. And in the both scenario, for reentrainment channel, you get a little bit weaker circulation, but for a closed domain, you get a stronger circulation. And if I combine this picture, this is nothing but our present view of Atlantic circulation. You have a cooling, heating, and cooling is applied with a zonal reentrainment channel in the Southern Ocean. You can exactly produce all the circulation, not only overturning circulation, you can produce those surface current by pure buoyancy forcing. And based on our this result, we can estimate. So a couple of the estimating is remarkable, and we are shown in our recent review article. So this is the spare drop we got it overturning circulation, and the present observation of spare drop around 16 spare drop. This was not very bad estimation. We can also estimate the heat transfer, which is also not way apart. And the values are definitely we need to use. And this is a couple of what is called the values we are plugging here. And these are the values that are listed here. So now, looking at this view, we can construct this overturning circulation in a three-dimensional fashion with the combined with the gyre circulation. So this is the view of our North Atlantic circulation, which has a deep ocean, what is called, which have a surface current with the western intensification, and then Gulf Stream, we have a Norwegian current, and this is the real observations. Actually, people have seen these currents. At the same time, you have the deep water. This is the view of north, and this is the view of south, okay, with the formation of ACC. Now, the conclusions I was listing here, I'm not going to go through. So what is I'm trying to express here, buoyancy adds APE to the ocean circulation and driving the motion. It may be not adding to the potential energy, but it adding a significant amount of ATP. That is enough amount can drive a circulation along with the mechanical forcing. It can produce convection, it can produce large scale motion. What are the looking ahead? We like to add more system like a salinity, because that was another key player of the buoyancy. We like to know the effect of tides, the mechanical forcing, looking at the complex bathymetry. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Bishak. That was a wonderful talk. The floor is now open to questions. Do we have questions from the audience? Yeah, Jitendra, if your mic is working, go ahead, ask your question.
Hello, thank you, sir. It was a very interesting talk. Sir, I want to ask: in the ocean, does the convection happen at a in a particular region where the mass flows slowly, or does it happen at a small patches?
So this is the view. This is actually the real ocean observation. This is kind of picture. What is called schematic of semi-real system. Okay, and mainly focusing on the buoyancy-driven part. But the couple of area I highlighted here. Can you see? This is the North Atlantic. This is the area we have in. It happens many area around the coastline, but these are the where they call as a deep convection happens. So water can go all the way to the bottom of the ocean. Okay, these are the area. If I look at the Southern Ocean, okay, of course, this is I'm looking at only the Atlantic part. In the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific, these are those hotspots of cooling event happen. Okay, of course, this convection is happen over the slope. It is not happen open ocean. People says like even 100 years back they used to have open ocean convection regularly, but the open ocean convection is now happen very irregular. Okay, the last time happened in 19 sorry 2015-16. So it is like a call as a Polynia open. Okay, open ocean Polynia. Okay, and there's a big convection, and that time if the convection is takes place, it immediately change the overturning circulation.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are there other questions from the audience?
Yeah, Ani, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Vamsi.
So Bishak, so from your talk, it's to me, I'm convinced that the buoyancy forcing can drive the basin level circulation. But what is the role of turbulence is not clear. Like you said earlier, that mechanical forcing and it is believed that mechanical forcing and mixing drives the circulation. But it's not clear to me, at least, like what is the role of turbulence in driving this large scale circulation?
Okay, that's a very good point. Okay, so now yes, this is the one I'd like to show you. Why is the turbulence is important? Yes, if you look at this all this scaling law, if you look at
Bishak, your slides are not showing anymore.
again gone.
Yeah, could you please share again? I'll
Yeah.
switch off my video.
Now,
Yeah, can see it now.
so now have a look. So look at all this expression here. Okay, you if you look at very closely, this build around kappa. Okay, because we cannot remove the we always have this advection diffusion balance. Okay, that is nothing but the large scale motion. The diffusion part where turbulence play a role to enhance the diffusive activity. Okay, so you can think as a eddy diffusivity or vertical diffusion. So all this kappa is sitting right here and positive power for all the circulation. So that is the where is the turbulence matter. This will intensify your turbulent diffusivity or mixing, and that effectively we can call mixing is driving the circulation, but that's not the right way to say mixing is driving the circulation. Circulation is driven by the force. Mixing is nothing but changing the global stratification, and that effectively changes circulation. It is just looking at here the expression, we cannot say mixing is driving the circulation. Driving is either by mechanical forcing or by the buoyancy forcing. Am I clear?
Yes, yes. So if we want to understand in terms of the physics, can we say that mixing is helping in sustaining the circulation?
Mixing is modifying the stratification, and finally it is also, yes, kind of that. But the word is mixing driving the circulation, in my view, is not correct.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah, thanks.
Are there other questions from the audience? Any other questions? So, Bishak, I had a couple of very simple questions. Sorry, I'll have to
Yes.
rush in a couple of minutes to another talk, but let me. So, when you, if you can go back to your slide where you showed half the domain is having heating and the rest is having cooling as the boundary condition.
Should
Yeah,
I go to the very beginning?
yeah, very beginning, the first one of the first slides where you showed the geometry of your numerical simulation setup. Anyway,
This
so my
one, correct?
question is,
Yeah.
I can't see the slide change.
Yeah, go ahead. You should me with
That's
the
fine.
question.
So when you say heating and cooling, that boundary condition is enforced in terms of the yeah heat flux or the temperature. What do this cooling and heating boundary condition actually mean?
So this heating and cooling is same. You can think about Rayleigh-Bénard, right? Either you can impose temperature or you can impose heat flux. So you're taking heat out from one side of the domain and imposing heat from other side of the domain.
But they are not the same, no? Maintaining temperature or doing it in terms of heat flux.
No, when you impose, so okay, when you imposing the temperature, so after thermal equilibrium reach, then the heating over the cooling end and cooling over the what is called the amount of cooling and amount of the heat flux is absolutely get what is called balance
Okay.
when you when you imposing the temperature. And when you imposing the heat flux, that is you can impose it, you can impose equal amount of the heat and equal amount of the cooling in an amplitude basis.
Okay.
It's the same as when you integrate over the ocean surface. Okay, the net
Yeah.
heating is absolutely zero. So that suggests that cooling and heating is balance each other. And this is the simplified view because it is not happen the half and half. It can be happen. You have a larger cooling going on over a small area and
Mm-hmm.
smaller is going on over a larger area.
Okay. Yeah. So I had just a thought. I don't know if it's a sensible question. So you spoke about this available potential energy. So can you think of some problem like for a given total potential energy, what kind of a configuration would maximize the in terms of introducing only horizontal scales would maximize the available potential energy?
Maximize. Okay, so you're talking about optimization problem, correct?
Mm-hmm.
No,
You showed two
I can.
configurations for which one had more available potential energy than the other.
Yes, of course, the configuration is the Rayleigh-Bénard that is has a highest available potential energy. When you're heating from bottom and cooling from the top, that is the highest. Okay,
Right,
and
but maintaining some constraints like you want to introduce heating and cooling only on the top surface.
in the top surface, there is yes, there is the yes, there are actually a couple of things is possible. So even say for so of course this problem I'm talking about only for heating buoyancy forcing, right? So when you actually add in wind stress, okay, of
Mm-hmm.
course we don't say wind is doing not only giving some energy to the ocean surface, it also changing these heat fluxes. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
my heating and cooling as the amplitude might increases, so it can increases the ap by wind, and that is actually happens. Okay, so that was another way wind is imparting available potential energy by increasing the heating or cooling. Okay, this is happens in lot in southern ocean.
Okay.
And then also you can think about geometry, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if my geometry is such that I can have a very much localized cooling, okay, I can actually getting more available potential energy because localized cooling give you more intensified formation. That back again, call as open ocean convections, right? I told you
Mm-hmm.
like, people have used to see this open ocean convection very common in 100 years back, okay, and they are very very powerful. They actually what is called change the overturning circulation within couple of years. Okay,
Okay.
and that was again back to localization, right? So if you
Uh-huh.
localize the cooling area, you can increase the APE. And couple of another things. In here where I'm talking about, as an equilibrium problem. Okay, but scenario, it is never equilibrium, right? Because you have this seasonality, right? It is cooling, heating, and then all these things are going on. There is an what is called annual variability, interannual variability. So ocean is never in equilibrium. When you have a non-equilibrium system, then AP is enormous.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So in the interest of time, Bishak, because I have to join another meeting, thank you very much again for this wonderful talk. I have a few more questions, but I will ask you separately by email or when we chat next.
Thank you. Thanks, Mani. Thanks for
Yeah,
organizing
thanks
this.
all for attending again.
I was
We'll
I
keep
was
in
just
touch.
go a little bit beyond the time. Sorry for that.
No problem. Absolutely no issues. That was very interesting. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Nisha.